Thanks so much for coming on in and doing this, man. This is
Of
exciting.
course, yeah. I've been wanting to do more podcasts and stuff. I mean, it's tough sometimes with other work schedules and family and all that kind of stuff, but I love just sitting down and chatting. So I'm about it.
Yeah, this is coming in on a great episode also for us too. Like we're launching everything new right now with you. So this is actually really exciting. So Brett, you're good on your end?
I'm good, man. Good, good.
Sit back, relax just for a couple minutes as we go through all the wonderful little housekeeping that is the beginning of the podcast intro, which is where we say welcome on into the Snap.fan podcast, everyone. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming, as always joined by the wonderful, the bearded, the friendly, the barely awake, still for some reason not caffeinated, and we're trying really hard to get him onto this kick, DefaultDan. Good morning, good sir. How
Morning,
are you
man.
functioning again? Bright and early, no coffee. Like
Up late last night because D4 dropped, and then this morning had to be here 5 a.m. But we're making it. We're making it.
well, don't say had to be here. You make it seem like it's a forceful obligation.
Yeah.
I cracked the whip from Brazil and said, "Hey, do the thing at this hour." Like
scene set up, all of that good stuff. But no, we're doing good. We're doing
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I mean, the hard work paid off. For those who are watching on the video podcast, you may notice that things look a little bit different. And that's kind of what we want to open this podcast with today, just to let the entire community know there are several big announcements. First and foremost, on the video side of things, we look completely different because we're nice and pretty. Britt's done an absolutely fantastic job of a brand new layover for us. So it's going to have a completely different feel as we go through what I'm now going to announce as season 2 of the Snap.fan podcast, powered by Snap.fan. I am honored to also announce that we are the official podcast of Snap.fan, starting with this season, this new layout, this official launch today. So Snap.fan has become a huge part of our lives in a variety of different ways over the past several weeks, but especially this week. I was brought on into the team and I am stoked. I'm not going to lie. I've been brought on as lead writer. So I am taking on the role of new articles, new everything that I can get into that website. I promise you, I put out my very first one just the other day. I put out an end of May tier list looking at the data that we collect from the Snap.fan tracker. Ever since the patch, just kind of looking at it through there, and I give a full breakdown of the decks that seem to clearly be the outlying performers and why, etc. So it's my first article. I invite you all to please head over there and just give me a comment down in the bottom of it, because I'd love as much constructive feedback. Constructive. I'm still not making Cerebra 16 as the comments asked already, but I'll take as much constructive feedback as possible. And I mean, I can't even announce you as a part of the team technically, because you've been with Snap.fan for a while, kind of.
It's kind of. So I guess technically now it's official part of the team.
Yes.
No, I've been running a lot of the tournaments, the tournament scene. If you guys have hung out with us on Twitch, the Snap.fan Twitch, I've pretty much put together all of those layouts, and every tournament we have every Wednesday night Snap, as well as the big May opens, or the big opens each month. Just like the May Open, and we have the June one coming up this month. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of that stuff. So going to be plugged in a little bit more, especially with your backup of making sure we have information going out, whether it's the website. Again, Alpha's helping with the Twitter as well, but I know you'll be posting stuff over there. So make sure, interact with Snap.fan everywhere you can. Like Guest said, if the articles go out, if there's things you want to see in an article, topics, things like that, let us know, because we want to make sure that we're building the best content for you guys, the people that are using it. So
Exactly. This is all for you. Like as much as I love talking with you, man. We also need to talk to other people. We try to expand it amongst ourselves. So for that reason, we've invited a new way for our community to be able to communicate with us, which is the Rate My Podcast site. So whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Google, Castbox, whatever your preferred platform is, or you're watching here on YouTube, where it automatically has a comment section down below, there is an official way to also rate that podcast, which is through Rate My Podcast. So whichever preferred outlet you have, there'll be a link as the main link of how to give us feedback, and also send us those mailbag questions. We did ask last episode for some mailbag questions to come on down for either myself, for Britt, for anything in regards to Marvel Snap, questions you may have about either the game or us. We invite you to join us on ratemypodcast.com/snapbackpodcast. Link is in the descriptions and the description. Yeah, that's the word. Descriptions of the podcast everywhere. So I think that's all the fun housekeeping to kind of just like roll up into that, right? Because I mean,
and what a better way to start a new podcast than getting special guest on here talking about the new season stuff that's coming up.
I mean, I know I'm special, but like, you know, the other guest.
The other guest, not you special guest.
Yeah. Oh, I know you call me special guest all the time, but like we have an actual special guest, which is also a first for this podcast. Our first ever special guest. I am honored to be able to introduce the one, the only, the Snap legend all over YouTube and moving all across the Snap scene, landscape, whatever you want to call it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in, Molt.
What's going on, guys? Happy to be here.
Yeah.
So happy to have you, good sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is a big episode, so I'm really, really happy that you came and had the ability to talk all the fun stuff. But before we get there, please, for those who do not know who you are, let us know.
Yeah. My name is Michael Holt. You can call me Molt, though, like I say at the beginning of my videos. I've been doing YouTube for over 10 years now, so it's been a hot second. 8 of those years, it's been my full-time job, so it's been a grind that I love and also hate, like all things good. But when I saw Marvel Snap come out, I guess over a year ago now, was when I posted my first Snap channel, which is crazy. Time has flown by for this game.
A year since beta, Jesus.
Yeah. So when I saw this come out, I was like, man, I want to commit. I want to make a channel on this, and so I did that, and here we are today, loving it.
And so prior to Snap, like, were you from the card game kind of community, or I think you did Clash and some of that stuff, but
right.
What got you into Snap and kind of piqued that interest?
Yeah, and I definitely wouldn't consider Clash Royale a card game, even though there's cards. The cards are just an avenue to the characters. Like it's definitely not a card game in any regard. I loved Legends of Runeterra. Their art style, the depth of it, all of that kind of stuff. And I played it a lot, but the time commitment was one of the things that eventually ended up like pushing me away from it, to where it's like, man, I just spent 20 minutes playing that and I didn't get anything from it. And coming from playing games by the company that pretty much made the whole 3-minute, 4-minute mark game, like they started that with Clash of Clans and then moved it on to other games. When I heard that this short format card game was coming out, I was like, man, this looks really good. I've always loved, as I've gotten older, I've loved playing games that make me think more, you know, like I'm 35 now. That's not old, but when I was 20, 25, whatever.
You're in the same boat, same company.
When I was younger, it's like my reaction time and all this kind of stuff. But now as I've gotten older, I like thinking and I like solving problems. And the more that I played this game, it's just like, there's so much depth to things that you can do to solve problems. And some of them are efficient and some of them are just weird, which is why I like some of the archetypes and decks that I build. It's like, how can I do this the most backwards way possible to solve a problem? And it's just fun.
Yeah.
I love that with this game too, because it also, like, one of the great things about Snap is that it appeals exactly to that, both interest styles. It's the what we'll call the TikTok YouTube brain mindset of, I want something short and fast and just rotate out to the next thing as quickly as possible. And then there's also the more competitive, classy, sophisticated style of, I want to figure out every possible way.
But there's guest in me.
100%. Yeah, like that's exactly it, because you're very much the like, okay, let's slowly figure this out and dissect this backwards. And I'm like, oh, shiny. Like I'm on to the next thing. But between both interests, I think it's one of the reasons Snap has been so successful. And I think it's one of the reasons this upcoming season in particular is so scary to so many people, yet incredibly exciting, just subtly in the background. And that's because we're talking about Move, and that's the whole focus of today's conversation is about the upcoming season, Move decks, the style itself. And it's one of the reasons we're so excited to have you as a part of it, because you've kind of been deemed officially, unofficially, like Molt Move, Mr. Move. Like there's so many other versions I've heard over the last several months. And how did Move all of a sudden for you, the archetype, become this like favorite, like epicness that now people think of when they think of Move, they think of you?
Yeah. I think it started just with obviously in earlier pools and whatnot, exploring things. Some of it was probably based off the cards that I unlocked initially. Like, oh, I've got a couple more Move cards. Like, let's see how this can work. And as I started playing those, I was like, wait, I think some of it unlocked when I got Doctor Strange. Because Doctor Strange is definitely one of the cards that creates lots of opportunities to catch your opponent off guard. And so as I started like playing with these different things, figuring out different ways to catch my opponent off guard, which is what I always say in videos, like that's why I do the most random crap in this game, where I'll play a whole bunch of 1-drops and I have Killmonger in my deck. And final turn, everyone's like, oh, cool. They're not going to play a Killmonger. No way. And then they play all their 1-drops and I take them all out. And then I play Killmonger and all my 1-drops. It's like, what the heck is this guy doing? And so I think Move is one of the archetypes just at its core that catches people off guard, especially because most people expect final turn Heimdall, which I maybe do like 30% of the time. Just depends on what's going on. And so as I like dove into it more and figured the different problems that could be solved and different ways to win and catch people off guard, I just fell in love with it, and just tried to make it better and better and better, and wanted to explain it to people because I want people to see the depth that the game has over just like the basic stuff, where for a long time it was like Black Panther Zola, like super straightforward, like I play this here, I play this here, and then I don't really have to think much. And so as I started doing that, I was like, man, I want people to start to grow and learn and be creative in the game. And I think Move is the best archetype for really diving into like some of the possibilities that you have.
Yeah, no, I love how you say, you're catching people off guard, because I feel like that was where, especially like Series 2, right? So Series 2 is kind of where, it starts to evolve and you get those big cards. And I feel like that's where the first time people start to see like Heimdall come down and you're like, oh my gosh, I was in these 2 lanes and all of a sudden all their stuff shifted and I lose, right? And then you get used to like, okay, Move cards, to your point, there starts to become this predictability out of some of the cards, and you have to kind of tweak that and how you do it. But there's some super, super powerful cards that people kind of forget about, like Human Torch, Vulture. These cards can get massive and huge just out of nowhere because they've moved twice or 3 times, based on how you've done it. So it's definitely a fun archetype because it's less predictable in the way people play it, especially as people progress their cards, their collections, and their play style. And to your point, they get away from that turn 6 Heimdall always play.
Yeah.
Right.
It's this de facto thought. I think it's because I'm pretty sure Heimdall's Series 2, right? I feel like he is.
I think
right,
most of Move is 2.
Because that's how so many people get associated with Move, is they're just like, okay, let's put all the cards, move a little bit up and through maybe turn 4, something else turn 5, and then let's do the Heimdall shuffle and move everything over. And that's how you play a Move deck. And that's why people stop playing Move decks into Series 3, because you think about this predictability. Meanwhile, there are so many other last minute moves and adjustments that you can do, both with and without Heimdall, especially if you understand how the slots work and the play order. And there's some cheeky, I know there are some cheeky moves you could do that even include Heimdall, that with the right timing you don't realize how that turn 6 shimmy with all the cards, like that was the second one placed in, but there's 3 in this lane. So if you put Heimdall here, only these 2 move. Like there's so much, it's a lot more cerebral, which is why so many of us are so scared of the archetype, which leads to one random side comment, because especially as I'm hearing more and more people talk about move and they're referring to the archetype. Is it archetype or archetype? Because everybody says it different. I've listened to like 6 podcasts in the last week and everybody says it different. And I feel like I'm the weird one because I don't add the extra in the middle. It's archetype. Like that's how I grew. It's a Northeast thing. I don't know. Like
that's hilarious.
Because you both say archetype.
Archetype.
With this extra archetype with the E. Very, very, maybe that's a Southern thing. I know you both are Southern boys in comparison to my Northern ass, but like, maybe, I don't know. Let us know in the comments, but it's something I've noticed randomly because we're all talking about this new archetype of move that we're all looking to revisit now. I mean, first off, I know it's midnight. At midnight, at least my time, the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse premiered. Neither of you have seen it, right?
Not yet.
Well, I know Britt didn't. His ass went to bed. You haven't seen it last night. Okay, good. So, see, I feel special because I made sure I wore my Spider-Man shirt for today. I was like ready for the conversation, even though he's like the least relevant in move for the most part, in my opinion. Because he's supposed to be, but he's not really actually truly relevant. It's like kind of block him and then maybe do the shuffle. Like it's just. It kind of works is the light way to word it. But let's talk about these new cards as well as how it's going to affect the archetype itself.
Yeah.
And now every time I say it, now I'm conscious of listening to the two of you say archetype. But there's a lot coming. Now, at the time that we're recording this, we haven't gotten the official season announcement, I know. But it is the Friday before a new season. So at some point today, probably by the time that our audience is listening or watching this, they're going to see the announcement come from Second Dinner that Spider-Man Across the Universe, Across the Spider-Verse season is here, where we're going to be talking about all the new cards that will be dropping from the season pass to the series 4 and 5 cards that will be coming to the game. Within current move, as we go into the first card, which is Ghost Spider, who will be the season pass, who's a 2/3 on reveal of the last card you played, moves here. In regards to just the general move archetype, what cards we'll start with Britt, and then we'll go to Molt. What cards do you immediately think of when you think of Ghost Spider's ability to move the last card that you played moves to wherever Ghost Spider is as an automatic, you should probably first try to prioritize blank as a card, or maybe a secondary synergy that you're going, that's cheeky, because I know I got one that I am so excited about.
So, I mean, when it comes to move, and I'm sure Molt, you probably have some spicy ones in mind around this, but there's definitely a lot of easy cards when you look at this, right? Your first step is, okay, she's a 2-drop, so you probably played Human Torch first, right? Just an easy go-to. And I think that's a good one. But I think the beauty of this card is you don't have to play her on 2. You can definitely play her on 4 or 5, because you could put her with like Vulture being another one. But there's definitely a lot of great cards that are going to be able to do this. And before we get to the other cards, I think she's specifically being created because of some of those other cards that aren't particularly quote unquote move cards. They have something to do when they move. And so it's going to kind of open that up, because right now in the current archetype, the only thing that really allows you to move stuff that you want to move is Doctor Strange, where if you know exactly what the power levels are, you can make sure you're moving a particular card, or like an Iron Fist, right? But again, Iron Fist has to work a very specific way. You have to make sure they can move, and based on the new cards, it makes it a little hard if you want to go right instead of left. So yeah, I'm really liking her. My first mind would be, of course, the easy play on 2 with Human Torch, and then potentially something like a turn 4 with Vulture or I guess Vulture's a 3, so this would be a turn 4, after Vulture, or a turn 5 when you're doing them in the same turn. So I'm gonna go the easy route. I'll pick the easy, obvious ones. How about you?
For me, one of the combos that I honestly try and throw into decks all the time because of its strength for cost is Iron Fist Dagger. You can get 12 power for the cost of 3, and in a meta like this where people are playing a lot of bounce and filling locations, there's a lot of opportunities to get that dagger up to a very big spot. And I think turn 4 is one of the turns where you really start getting the move archetype going, because you can play Cloak and Craven. And one thing that I love doing in my move decks is I have Angela in my move decks, and a lot of times people are like, "Why the freak do you have Angela in there?" And it's like on turn 4 or whatever, I can play Craven on top of Angela and then play Cloak on another location and then move Craven over, and Angela got its buff, and then now I have like Craven over the location that I actually wanted at. And so turn 4, I think of playing Dagger with Ghost Spider, because a lot of times by turn 4, people will kind of solidify a lane that they're building towards. Turn 2 Dagger isn't really good because you might get to hit 2 cards. And obviously you get to move it after that. But I think of like the later combos with Ghost Spider. So you could do that turn 4 Dagger Ghost Spider sort of thing. Or if you're playing bounce, you could do Iron Fist Human Torch on turn 2, and then turn 3 bring it back, and then beast that and bring all of that back, and then you have Ghost Spider again. So the potential, if you draw into things that you want to get like Human Torch even bigger than it's ever been before, is going to be super cool with Ghost Spider, because it's going to open up a lot of different avenues to move things back to locations instead of just like moving them left. So yeah.
Let's not break our entire audience's head, though, with the idea of combining move and bounce as the first thing that they should do.
No, don't do that yet.
I mean, that is like next level. Okay, like I'm sweating already thinking about it, but like I'm excited at the idea, because a lot of what you guys said, I 100% agree with. I think that it's right around that turn 4, turn 5, like pre-setup big move, that all of a sudden you're waiting for that turn 5, turn 6 big move to drop, because it's with Britt, to like the combo you're thinking about. If you think of just base levels, if you went on turn 6, if you dropped Iron Fist, Vulture, and Ghost Spider technically into one lane, you'd be dropping 18 power. If you drop all three 1, 2, 3 in the same lane. And that as a turn 6 is a huge push. That puts Orca to bed. Sorry, Matrim. That puts Orca to bed. And that's a lot of power all at one time, yet alone some of the other, cheeky timings and movings. Because when I think of Ghost Spider, the number one card I think of is actually not even a move card, because of how busted the synergy is. So Dagger's a lot of fun. Vulture's a lot of fun. And Britt, I sent you a deck that's going to be featured on Snap.fan as well, because the number one synergy I'm looking at, which I think is going to make it one of the best turn 5, turn 6 combos in the game, is Hulkbuster with Ghost Spider.
Which deck? You sent me 2 decks. Okay, I see it.
Exactly. Yeah, the one that has Hulkbuster. How about that? That should make it a little easier. So I'm calling it Shuri is back. But just to give an idea of how that'll work, you can play down Hulkbuster and Ghost Spider, obviously, let's say same turn 6. Hulkbuster absorbs into a card. That is now considered the last card played. So then Ghost Spider can bring that mega card, whatever that now is, over somewhere else. So I'm thinking of the 50-50 shot that could happen of playing Shuri on 4, Red Skull on 5 in the same lane, Hulkbuster that card, absorb that massive 29 power Red Skull, and now shift it over to where she is. Like, there's so much that Hulkbuster can do, because it can take any card and make it a move card. Because of what Ghost Spider does. That's mega power, and only costing 5.
Well, and another thing that you can do, I mean, again, because you've got my brain going, like we talked about, like I get into the weeds once I get there. So Another really cool play you could also do is like disruptive with Doc Ock, if you think about it. So you Doc Ock one turn, and then you move Doc Ock away. Because you have that too, maybe you have Shang-Chi or something like that, right? Back for that Doc Ock lane. So it's like, I'm going to Doc Ock, pull your stuff next turn, play Ghost Spider to move that 10 power somewhere else, and maybe throw down Shang-Chi in a lane to lock that other lane up. So yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot more outside of the specific, like easy, right? That easy Human Torch, whatever go to. And here's the thing. I'm fine with you playing Human Torch. I'm a destroy player, so my Killmonger is just going to kill that. I don't. You can get him up to a 40 for all I care. He's gone. He's gone soon.
We've talked about this on the podcast previously. Molt, I'm going to ask you too. Is Human Torch fine as is, or should Human Torch have his levels be adjusted? Because I've brought it up as making him either a 2-2 or a 2-3, which has been a topic of conversation in the past as like an OTA change, because I hate that he can be exactly that. He could be Killmongered.
Right.
But how do you fix that, if at all? So I ask you, because no, you're skipping Human Torch. I mean, you play move more than almost anybody else in the game, comparatively, that at least we know publicly. Right. And I have almost never seen you touch Human Torch. So how do you fix him?
I don't know if you want him to be fixed, because you need that one cost move card, because we don't have that otherwise, you know? So for a while I would run I'd run an armor in my deck when I was trying to experiment with making him work. But definitely not the ideal move card by any means, because of that danger. But honestly, if you think about it, right now I feel like I'm not seeing too many Killmongers, because I've been playing bounce with Human Torch, and that protects it a little bit more. So there is that avenue of protecting your Human Torch by playing bounce and pulling it back. But if it was a 2, then is that going to make people not play Dagger because Human Torch is now their 2-drop move card or whatever? I don't know. I've definitely thought about it a lot. And I even talked to the team. I was like, what if Hulkbuster changed the cost of the card, but then that would screw up Deadpool decks? So it's like, if Hulkbuster turned Human Torch into a 4 that was already down on the board, then it'd feel a lot safer. But if somebody played Hulkbuster on Deadpool, then like you're not going to play a 4-drop or a 3-drop to get it out there.
This is true.
Yeah, it's interesting, because selfishly, I would love for my Human Torch to get massive and not get destroyed. But then I think you would see it a lot more if it was a 2-drop for sure.
And I think that's
maybe
kind
of oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that's kind of the hard part when you look at a lot of these cards, which we talked about this on one of the last podcasts, like with High Evolutionary coming in the game and really touching all of our vanilla cards, our cards that you need in series 1 and 2 for new players. It's interesting because you're getting to a world of like, how do you touch these cards that are series 1 without doing too much damage? Because you have to always remember that brand new player coming in and experiencing move, which is Human Torch plus Iron Fist, right? Like just that little bit of a combo before you get Doctor Strange and you kind of continue down that path. But I don't know. I think Human Torch is super strong and powerful, and he needs an answer. And as soon as you move him to a 2-drop, there really isn't an answer for him. Like outside of him getting so big you Shang-Chi him, he becomes too protected. So I think that's where they made a very good choice of, going from Human Torch to Vulture being your next 3-drop that does something very similar, in the fact that he can grow really fast. So I don't know. I think he's fine as a 1-drop. It does feel bad if, somebody Elektra's Human Torch or Killmonger's Human Torch, but I think that's the point. And I think going back to that series 1, series 2, I think that's where you had that feel bad of, I've got me Human Torch huge, and now they used Elektra and just killed him,
Yeah.
Maybe Ghost Spider now creates this Human Torch yo-yo effect where you have having armor protect Human Torch, and then you can just have it like Iron Fist will move it out, and then you can have Ghost Spider bring it on back, and then you have
Doctor Strange move it again.
Doctor Strange move it out, and then Cloak move it on back again. Like it's just like constantly just peeking out of armor left and right. It's like, oh, you can hit me, no, you can't. Oh, you can hit me, no, you can't. Like it's, Like maybe that's the move, because that's what Ghost Spider's going to bring to the game. She's going to bring this unique ability to now have a retroactive move on a card versus a reactive move, where it's always, hey, look for this and then make it move because it's what's happening next. Or it's scary to think of all the things that she's also going to do outside. Like I use the Hulkbuster one as an example, right? Look at somebody like Arrow, same reasons. You have Arrow drop down on 5 and then have Ghost. So you clog a lane. Maybe they were trying to spread. It's like a discard deck. They have Morbius and then they have Dracula. But you've actually slid that Dracula now into the Morbius lane where they were looking to spread their power. Now it's all condensed into one lane. And then Ghost Spider can say, hey, no. Let's bring you back over to this lane and use this 8 power effectively because we're sacrificing the lane on the side. Like, it is way more than just a move card. But as you alluded a little bit also beforehand, I think there are very specific synergies that she is made for, given the rest of the cards that are coming out this season, which should be the cheapest season to date, because of some of these cards, at least as long as Second Dinner keeps their word, as long as they keep their word that two of the new cards that are coming this month will be dropped into Series 4. So 3,000 collector's tokens. And for many of us who have been playing the game a long time, that's even cheaper because like, I know I'm sitting on 60 reserves. I'm sitting on them waiting specifically to open up some cards that could be dropped automatically into Series 4, or hoping that Stegron finally drops into Series 4 so I can actually start testing him. But like, because he's literally the only card I don't have right now. And I'm just like, please drop next month. But at the same time, I don't want him to, because I want some of these new cards. I want to open the conversation into these new cards. I'm so used to saying the Series 5 cards of the month. No, but just the new cards of the month. And looking at probably one of the scariest, because again, of how powerful this card will be, cards to drop, which is the 2/5 Silk, where it's a static effect. So not ongoing, not on reveal, or just a static effect of after any card is played here, this moves to another location.
Kind of
so
like
it's constantly like
it's a different Titania, right? So like Titania goes to their side, whereas now you're like, I play this and I may move to some other random location, which I don't know. I like it. I like it outside of the fact it may get, which is probably fine, it may get stuck in some locations. Like Sanctum.
And if you think about it, the only thing that Silk does for move decks is benefit Craven. You know, because it doesn't get a buff in its own right. So it's going to be good, obviously, with its stat line of 2/5 and the fact that it can hit Craven and help get Craven up. But it could also mess you up with being it. Like, one of the things that's so frustrating for me with move is when you have a lane that you want to have 4 cards at, but you also have to play a move card in that lane. So then you end up having a gap to fill. So like, you always have to have pretty much 2 spots on a location to play Iron Fist and something else if you're trying to move things. And Silk could potentially like mess you up in filling up a location where you were planning on playing Iron Fist and Dagger, or Iron Fist and Vulture late game to try and get some power. But I think Silk looks good and looks fun, and I think we're going to see a lot of big Cravens because of Silk.
Yeah, the thing with Silk specifically that I want to see is, you know how there's that weird interaction to kind of look at 2 other cards. Like there's that interaction between Polaris and Nebula, where if Polaris pulls Nebula over, Nebula will not increase because it's considered as a card played in that lane. I want to see how this works with Silk, because then I'm thinking of something like Captain America, for example, where if you have Captain America in a lane and Craven in a lane, right? At the same time, you go ahead and play Silk, and then you follow that up with Doctor Strange. It's an odd combo, but basically you're creating Silk to be the top card. But if Doctor Strange pulls that over, does that count for her effect of played in this lane? Because it could end up creating this loop of, oh, this was a 2/6 Silk because of Captain America. It brings it over to where Doctor Strange is. It's considered moved, and then it moves again, almost essentially moving it back into that Craven lane. So now it's basically just done a loop, moved Silk back around, and just given an extra buff to Craven for that exact reason. So that's one of the things I want to see with how her effect works, because you could lock out and loop effectively from that. The other big synergy I see with her is I see her being a potentially strong play in Lockjaw, because you'll play into that Lockjaw lane. If she gets pulled out of a Lockjaw lane, just like how many people like to play Vision, same reason, or Nightcrawler, same reason, you play into that lane, swing, she swings on over and gets out of the way.
Yeah.
Which I'm hoping to see some damn good animations for, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But the only thing to kind of remember though, right, is she is the 2/5 and it says if any card. So that's also going to be looking at their side too. So, you know, from an opponent's perspective, I think this is gonna be a fun card, because to Molt's point, sometimes cards get locked. I mean, you get locked into your areas because of things like debris, right? Debris throwing rocks out and taking up some of your spots, or Titania even makes it weird when you're trying to play to remember, like, okay, is she gonna be on that side or this side, or who gets last play? And I think that that's gonna be one of those things where in a move deck specifically, she may not be that great because of the fact your opponent may be putting her somewhere that you don't want her to go, or you're trying to set something up specifically and then all of a sudden they just played something. But it is a interesting point, like you're making, Guest, of how is she the way she's worded, how is she going to interact? Like, for instance, debris throws out rocks. Is those rocks also going to, you know, trigger? It shouldn't, because they're not played, but it's
those are added,
right. But there's just always these little weird interactions based on some wording. So it'll be interesting to see once it's live, what moves it and how often does she move.
You just made me think of Bounce is going to be one of the most fun ones to go up against, because the second you drop Mysterio, Silk is just going to go absolutely nuts for like three back and forths all over the place, because every single one of those is considered played. Like, that's going to look amazing, which makes me almost think that maybe she should be Vipered as a clog mechanic.
Where, like, I'm not sure how often. I don't know if she's going to trigger at the end of turn like Nebula, or if she's going to trigger as they're being played. I think that's the big question too, because it's not
true.
It's not worded to where it really. It's hard, because if you throw down, like, to your point, on my turn, if I throw down 3 cards, 1 in each lane, is she seeing the first one moving and then she goes, oh wait, that's also played, but that's going to create a weird loop. So I think it's going to be end of turn is when she's actually going to move.
I don't know. So, but you know, we've also seen. Hopefully, Second Dinner has learned a little bit from the wave. Seriously, from the wave conversation, because that's exactly what this scenario could end up being. Where how important is the phrase at the end of this turn after any card was played here? For example, this card moved, or is it like wave where it happens in the middle of the effect, middle of the hand? Until a further time, which is, as we saw, a lot of people were getting pissed off about things like White Queen and Black Bolt and etc. Right? So it's interesting to see how that effect is. Honestly, I didn't even realize that until you said it, that it says after any card is played here. So
your opponents too.
Literally both sides. Which is cool, but now makes me really kind of second think how to play her entirely. Because I think, Molt, you're right. She isn't move focused necessarily. I think that this is a little bit more potentially disruption and control focused in some weird way. Like even on a Doctor Strange piece, that could sorry, not Doctor Strange, wrong card. Professor X piece, that could be a really fun card to either lock it in that position or to have it restrict only between 2 lanes. So maybe that's the play.
Yeah, and she definitely could give you access to locations that you can't play cards at, or something like that. So almost like a Jeff the Shark, but in a different sense of, okay, I have 4 cards at this location right now. I'm going to move Silk over to that location where cards can't be played anymore. And I know that she's going to stay at that location. But yeah, I don't know. Definitely not your typical move card in regards to how it relates to the other cards that you're playing. Like it's going to be the least controllable move card of all of them. Well,
and I think that's where, like, when we look at this season's cards, right? I don't feel like any of them are specific, like this is a move card, right? A lot of them don't necessarily have the same type of text we've seen on the previous move cards, yet they all interact when they are moved. So I think they've done a really great job this particular month with this season of cards, because they are move cards because they move, but they're not specific to just like, hey, I move this around to get these powers. They're just going to interact slightly different. And they kind of fit into a wider range of decks, which I think is really, really cool. And it doesn't just say, you know, like we've seen with some destroy cards or right, like MODOK and discard, right? It's like, oh, it's pretty straightforward. You put them in discard. There's not really multiple decks that he goes into compared to, you know, these cards. They feel like they can be used as a 1-2 combo in a few. So
I see what you did there with multiple decks. I see what you did there. Okay, very good. Okay, so Molt, I ask you, is Silk going to be Series 4 or Series 5?
Nobody would spend 6,000 tokens on Silk.
Yeah,
I mean, I would for content purposes, but no, if I was free to play,
you can't count us. Do not count us in that conversation. We are content creators. We have a forced obligation by this community. Consistently, we must know all the things, and we must have all the cards, and we must be infinite. That is a standard, good sir.
Yeah. No, definitely not. Definitely not a Series 5. I would say if Ghost Spider wasn't the pass card, I would 100% spend 6,000 tokens on Ghost Spider and use it a lot. Ghost Spider, I'm amped that that's the pass card, because it's going to open up so many different things within the archetype that just makes it a little more free flowing. So
I think kind of to your point there, Guess, with as we look at what cards here and in the future, what's going to be, you know, Series 5 compared to 4, and who knows, maybe 3 at some point, but I doubt they'll ever do that. But please 5 and 4. I think there's two pieces. One is how good is the card, or how hyped is the card, right? Because here's the other sad truth about it. I mean, they can make these decisions 2 days before they go live and tweak a couple numbers, right? Like realistically saying. So they see a huge hype in the community and they go, oh, this is a hyped card. So this one's going to be Series 5 because we know people will spend on it. But I think the other side of this is the character itself. A lot of people don't know Silk. They don't know some of these cards. And I feel like when you think of cards like Stegron that we talked about before, he has a really cool interaction, but he's not a known character. So the hype around a character that nobody knows is always going to be less than characters that are, you know, currently coming out. And I'm not saying that's always a factor, but I'm just saying it's a slight piece of it. So it's one of those things to think about when we think about how good the card is. There's also going to be that, okay, and I'll give the example of Miles, right? When Miles dropped for the season pass, Miles was a bad card. It wasn't until recently when people had Jeff and things like that made Miles a playable card. But when he came out, it was Miles. It was, you know, everybody had to have that card. And so he was season pass. But if it were to be the same thing now, I think you could put him as a Series 5, whether he's great or not, because he's that character is going to draw the buzz. So I think that there is 10% or whatever of a card is going to be, you know, do you know the character, and is that character a hypey type of character? So.
So on that note, I am not excited for any of these cards. I don't think anybody should get any of them whatsoever. These are awful decisions. I would not spend a single token on these, creator or not.
They should be free like Kitty was.
They should drop it to Series 2. Like, snow guard this shit. Like, God. No, but for seriousness though, I do think Silk is also, I agree that it's probably going to be a 3,000 token Series 4. I hope so, at least, because I'm going to feel real guilty needing to spend 6,000 tokens to get this specific card. Just like Spider-Ham, I do not want to spend 6,000 tokens on Spider-Ham, except for one very specific reason, who is the, you know, as we put him up on the screen here on the YouTube side, Spider-Ham, who is a 1/1 on reveal. Transform the highest cost card in your opponent's hand into a pig, keeping its power and cost. So it's already being called Mini Leech for all of the right and proper reasons. and I see one group of people specifically buying this card at 6,000 tokens, and I see everybody else buying this card at 3,000 tokens. And the ones who will spend 6,000 are those who are absolutely sick and tired of Galactus.
I knew you were going to say
everybody who's because it's true. Like every single person who's just like, I want the it's like when you put debris in your deck, that's just to screw with Galactus. When you put in even Polaris into a specific deck, that's just to screw with Galactus more often than not. Spider-Ham at a 1 cost, you're telling me that I have the chance on turn 4 to drop Spider-Ham and nail that and turn it into a big giant pig?
No, you won't hit him though. You won't hit him. You're gonna hit death every time, and their death is gonna be a pig. So
maybe.
But which is fine. I mean, you take away death, you're gonna hit death, null, or Galactus. But yeah,
it's just bad. I mean, it just, if you're a Galactus player, to be threatened by Spider Pig now is such an awesome and scary feeling in this community. Because I mean, look at him. He's holding a donut and he's threatening Galactus. Like, I know it's not a move card, even though it's Spider-Ham, which I just love that they threw him into, this release of this month. I don't know if I'm gonna get this card as much as I don't like Galactus. I really don't know if I'm gonna get this card.
I agree.
Yeah, so
I think the other ones seem a little more worthy of the tokens being spent. It is hilarious, and I completely agree with the sentiment of people that are just tired of Galactus decks are going to grab Spider-Ham just for the opportunity to mess with them. But the other two are definitely up there.
Yeah, and see, this is where I go back to, and the reason why I made that comment about hype on a card, character, the community, this will be a Series 5 card. And the reason it's a Series 5 card is because it's Spider-Ham. I'm telling you, it's Spider-Ham. Everybody knows Spider-Ham. And he was one of the big things from the last movie. So like, I agree with you though.
That's good.
I don't know if he's
that's good.
If he's the best card to have, but I do think it is interesting where you can target their biggest card. So even going back to move, right? So here's the other thing to remember. With the move cards coming out, there's a potential that the OG move deck comes back with Heimdall turn 6. And even though you may not use it all the time, I mean, not being able to use it getting removed is a factor within your deck, right? And you do think of the big 6 drops that most decks revolve around. So a She-Hulk, a Death in the destroy decks, a Null, like there's these big cards that can still get hit by this card, and he's a 1-drop. So I would not play him if he was a 3+ drop, right? A 3+ drop, even if he was like 4 or 5 power, I don't know if he's good enough. I'd rather play a White Queen and just get your 6-drop, a copy of it and know what you're going to do. So I like him as a 1-drop. I think he's fine, but I think with the fact it's Spider-Ham and he's such a hyped up known character, I'm pretty sure he's going to be a Series 5. Sorry, guest.
No, as I'm thinking about it more and more and more, I'm actually okay with it, because then it means before we move on to Spider-Man 2099, that means technically if is good,
I forgot.
Second Dinner keeps their word.
I forgot. You said there's supposed to be 2, isn't there?
Exactly. So go ahead, make Spider-Ham the Series 5, because then that means Spider-Man 2099 would be the other Series 4 in this instance. For all of the reasons, I would be okay with that then.
Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like we're missing a card then. I feel like there should be one more card. But before we get to Spider-Man 2099, really quick, this is the pig. So I love that they've I love that they've also like went above and beyond, right? Of like, here's another card. It's a great artwork and all of that. But before we jump to the next card, there's a conversation going on. We see it all the time everywhere, where any of these extra cards, any of these ad cards should have art matching the variant that was done. And I think that this is I'm not, there's the whole like squirrel stuff and all of that with Squirrel Girl, but I think for this one, it would be really fun if specifically they did make the pig or, some of these ads have their own art related to the variants. I'm curious. I want to ask you this, Molt. When it comes to the variants and things like that, since you're not as known for variants as, like Super Tech God and some of those guys, what are your thoughts around the variants and the ad cards? Should they have their own variant that's matching the card, or you're fine with how it is?
I definitely think that they should, just for consistency's sake. Like, it makes sense that would change as well to match or whatever. Like, it took them forever to make it to where Mysterio had the correct thing. So I'm happy with that, because that was always super annoying, because I was the only one that got to enjoy my variant there. I think for the sake of consistency, I don't understand why they wouldn't, but yeah, I don't know. What have other people said? No?
I mean, I think everybody's kind of on that line of they need to, but Second Dinner's kind of said like, especially the older stuff, right? They're like, now we'd have to go back and reach out to 7 or 8 different artists on some of these cards with the different variants, but to get a new style. But I don't know. I think they should.
Yeah,
I think they should too. I mean, if you look at the pig and you look at Spider-Ham, it's the same artist, it's the same colorist. Yeah. So to ask that of anybody who makes a variant, hey, this one comes as, this is a double, commission. We need this card and we need this card. You're just commissioning 2. So yes, you're paying for twice as much, but considering that variants, especially even if it's for the super rare and the, what's the other word? The 5,000 token ones, not legendary. What the hell are they called? Ultimates. Thank you. The ultimate variants, at least for those, I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I think that some of the variants should have those secondary cards, like your Sinister Clones and your Broodlings and et cetera. Like, those should have some. And I'd love to see that for this pig and see how so many different artists just simply
I want to venomize
transform
pig.
a pig.
I want a venomized pig to go in their hand.
That'd be amazing.
That's what we get on Spider-Ham. So thinking of some of them, we've got Venomize. We've got, of course, my favorite, the Dan Hips, but Chibi and stuff like that. But yeah, like Venomized pig, go to their hand. Yeah, do it.
That'd be really cool. Not just it's a pig, but it just had just fangs. That's it. It's not black Venomized. It's just the fangs poking out the bottom with its ears. I'd 100% spend more if the secondary cards also had the variants too. And I think the community generally would probably do the same thing. But last thing I wanted to touch on this before we move on to Spider-Man 2099. One of the benefits I just realized is in those popular bounce archetypes. And in Silver Surfer, that means Spider-Ham's going to kill Sarah. That means it could hit Sarah or something like Moon Girl or America Chavez. Well, not America Chavez, because that'd be turn 6. But like, it actually has, as I'm thinking more and more about it here, specifically the Sarah play, because how often do you build a deck and Sarah's just your most expensive card? Like, to know that you could kill Sarah for that turn 6 big wha at the very end could actually be very beneficial. So go ahead, make him 6,000 tokens. I'm totally cool with that if that's the only one, and it means transition here to Spider-Man 2099 being 3,000 tokens, even though I'm fairly certain he's going to be the Series 5. Personally, I think there's more hype behind him than anybody else right now. At least from the prior conversations leading into this conversation, just not from just us, but just community wise. Most of us are leaning towards this because this is probably the most move feeling of the 3 series 4 and 5 drops that are coming out, where he's a 4/6. He was changed. He's now a 4/6 in the data mines, where the first time this moves to a location, destroy an enemy card there. Molt, how are you looking at this card, knowing this effect as someone who is very, to say the light term for it, familiar with move?
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of I'm working on a move video right now where I kind of break down the different types of move cards that we have. There's power move cards like Vulture, Iron Fist, Dagger. There's performance move cards, which are like Iron Fist, Cloak, things like that. And then there's control move cards, which are like Magneto and Arrow. So there's different archetypes within there. But a lot of times the move decks that I play are strictly offensive. I'm trying to get as much power on my side as possible, but I'll maybe have Juggernaut on my side just to control it in that sense. And I think Spider-Man is going to be more of one of those control move cards where you'll see people throw arrows, Magnetos into their other decks, especially like Lockjaw with Magneto and Vision and things like that. So I think Spider-Man 2099, we're going to see a lot of people throw into decks with, say, Iron Fist, or maybe they just throw a Cloak in there because Cloak as a 2/4 is just an incredible stat line. Like when Lizard got his punch in the face, I was like, okay, I'm not going to use Lizard anymore. I'm just going to throw Cloak because it's a 2/4 without any downside that I can play on final turn on top of my Angela, whatever. And so I think we're going to see it in move decks. And the interesting thing is, obviously, it's going to take away from power being generated on your side. So you're going to have to think about that, because a lot of times you'll put Shang-Chi in a deck and you'll never have to use it. Spider-Man 2099 obviously has a great stat line with 4/6, so you're going to be able to add that power on that location, but you are also losing the control of which card it's going to choose to hit. And so I think you'll see people throw it into decks that, I don't know, maybe they bring Heimdall with them as well inside of another big like wave electro deck type thing. But for me, it seems like it has a very specific use of more of that control-y tech card than like, I'm gonna move a bunch of stuff on my side to gain power. You know?
I know. I'm when you mention Magneto, I'm just waiting for them to be like, oh, Magneto, because so many people put him as their 6-drop because he's very good. His stat line's huge, and you know, prior to Darkhawk, you really weren't moving really big cards, so it was never an issue. But now it's like, oh, you want to move my Spider-Man? Sure, you can play that Magneto, because you're gonna grab him. But he's one of those cards where like I'm not a fan of Negasonic at all. So I get where she is. You put her down, you can control a lane, but I don't like the fact that she kills herself when she does it, right? So like it's a big negative spot of like, I'm going to throw down this card, and literally unless like my opponent is not smart and throws something huge into her, which doesn't make sense at all, she's kind of this bad card to play, whereas Spider-Man 2099 does not die. So I really like the fact that, you know, you can, to your point, you can be offensive with them if you're going to purposely do it with a you know, an Iron Fist or something like that, but also kind of just be like, hey, I'm going to throw them down. And now if you're moving stuff, or, you know, with an arrow or a Magneto, you're going to regret that. So I like the way they've kind of built him out to be usable in a couple different ways. Again, like you mentioned, it's a move card, but it's not necessarily the move deck that you're thinking about. But he can slot in there just as fine, because even killing like a 3-drop or something like that, you know, because you don't have a choice of what it's killing, it can help you win a lane.
Yeah, I think Spider-Man 2099 is definitely geared more towards players that will be in Series 2, because the easiest synergy, it's going to be the Heimdall synergy. It's the just get it down on the field. You've already unlocked Heimdall. Move Heimdall. Get Spider-Man to move from Heimdall. Kill something on the other side. Make a bigger swing of power, which does open up a little bit more flexibility for Heimdall simultaneously, because you don't need to have necessarily Vulture in the same lane as Spider-Man 2099 or Human Torch and any of the other offensive scaling cards, because you've got that Shang-Chi-ish type effect where you're destroying on the other side of the battlefield. At the same time, I'm looking at like a giant power swing on turns 5 and 6, where I'm playing down Spider-Man 2099 on 4, followed by Ghost Spider and Venom. And then I'm eating all of it, destroying something on your side, destroying 2 cards on my side. I've now set up my death to be affordable or even lower. So I'm looking at a destroy move hybrid, specifically because of Spider-Man 2099, which I think would be appropriate in regards to who the card is, to build a destroy variation of this, where you can have things go around, and then, you know, you've got Killmonger going around with those extra beefy pieces you were talking about earlier with Human Torch, doing it on purpose and blowing up your giant 1-drops, to get multiple deaths, or Zolas. I mean, there's so much you could, like, that's the direction I go with the card, where yes, it's move, but it's move plus. It's either playing this card with Heimdall more often than not, because ideally by the time you would want to move Spider-Man 2099, you probably have set up other move cards like Dagger or Vulture to be higher than 6 power. So Doctor Strange wouldn't necessarily be targeting 2099 anyway. I'm looking at it as the one of two different directions. The easier approach for those who have less move cards in their deck because they're a newer player. So Heimdall plus this equals great. Or get into hybrid move decks like a Destroy hybrid, where you can move around with just 1 or 2 extra pieces of synergy, like a Cloak, for example, which is already a solid synergy with this. Or, for example, Ghost Spider, the new season pass. So I love that this has that nice little hybrid in between different archetypes where we're starting to see, like you talked about, like the bounce variation of move. And this is where I think by the end of the season, people will start to feel a little bit more comfortable, because I mean, I'm imagining bouncing Spider-Ham as a 1 cost, bringing it back and playing it again, and potentially hitting another card and making a second pig in hand.
Okay, I got a question.
Hit the same pig, but
I got a question. The cards reset when they come back to your hand. So, as an example,
not first time cards.
Okay.
If it's an on reveal, yes,
we'll be able to use.
Again.
Okay.
I don't think we can use Spider-Man 2099 twice.
Oh, man, I was thinking if you like Iron Fist on 3, play him on 4, so he goes back in the lane with Iron Fist. Turn 5, you pick him up with Beast. Turn 6, you do it again. But I wasn't really sure. I doubt it. But
I'm thinking I can do this. There's another card that has a first time mechanic that doesn't proc if you try to do it a second time. And my brain is eluding me. This is called vamping as we try to think of it. And I open up the game privately in the background to go to the filters and typing in that magical word first. I know the chat or the comment section is going to be exploding. Like, how didn't you think of blah, 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 fast enough? I'm like,
this happened last season with a card. I know what you're talking about. I just don't remember what card it is. But there were cases where people talked about this and they were confused as to why it didn't happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I
can't remember.
I know there's an interesting. It's like I guess it's an interesting argument around that. Maybe it should, because it's technically playing. But I get it. It's like it's the same card, so it's not really the first time. But anyway, I was thinking that could be like a really nasty move bounce combo within all of that, so that you could kill 2 cards with it. But
yeah,
that's okay.
I actually really like the Destroy archetype kind of thing you can do, because you could play Nolan there with Venom and like have lots of cool opportunities. So that's a fun thing to think about.
Yeah, and I mean,
I
again,
can't seem to find it on the back end.
I think when you look at cards like the move cards, there's a lot of them where they're at good rates. So I know you mentioned that Molt with Spider-Man being at a good rate, a 4/6. That's kind of your standard when you think of White Queen and some of these other cards, right? Enchantress for a week. So it's definitely that 4/6 is kind of the thing they like to nail as far as being kind of that not middle of the line, because they also have a good ability with them, but a lot of the cards are that way when it comes to move cards. So being able to kind of do that and see that. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Spider-Man 2099 is going to do. And I guess going back to the token rate, you're probably right. This is probably the 5. I forgot that they had mentioned that 2 cards this season would be 4s, and I don't know if that's the right move. Like, speaking of move, I don't know if that's the right, like they should have made 2. If they're only dropping 3 cards plus the season pass card, I don't know why you would say we're going to drop 3 and 2 of them are going to be super cheap, because they've said in the past they really don't want you to have a full collection. And I feel like it's every month it's getting easier to have a full collection.
Wait. You're making me bring out the tinfoil hat. Maybe. I don't think Molt's ever seen this. I've had this aluminum foil hat for like 3 years. Seriously. So I legitimately think that maybe the reason we get 2 Series 4 cards this season and 1 Series 5 is because maybe there's an exclusive card that comes with Conquest mode, possibly premiering in June. Maybe we
Huh.
get that announcement. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. By the time this podcast goes out, probably that information will be out there, but maybe, fingers crossed, Annihilus, maybe, we get.
Oh gosh, that'd be amazing.
It'd be gore.
It would be. I mean,
gore that just destroys every 6-drop or whatever it was.
What the hell was it? Gore's? Yeah.
Gore the
now we're in the
God
data mine world, but like, destroy all 6-cost cards wherever they are as a 0/0. I mean, he did get a lot of variants.
The
zero, we do know that.
Well, and the 0/0 is a placeholder with the data mines because we don't know what he really is. But yeah, like
he'd have to be a 6, otherwise Null would be insane.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's a 6-drop.
Yeah,
and in most decks, right? Like that's only killing one card. It's killing one card, and ramp decks is killing 2 cards. So it sounds amazing, and I'm not saying it's not.
Galactus counter.
Yeah, because there's definitely going to be some cards that that hits that makes a big thing, but
true.
Yeah, I don't know.
So in honor, of Molt, you coming on down here, this is where I tell Britt to take a look at the second deck that I sent him.
Yep.
The recommended deck for the season going into Ghost Spider that I created was very heavily inspired from your big best move deck that you ever created. I did a small little tweak of adjustment for it, looking at Ghost Spider, because Ghost Spider is the season pass card. It will be the first card that will be most accessible for everybody. I'm renaming it, calling it the Ghost Spider Moves Like Dagger, where it takes a lot of the synergies like your Angela play, which I think is a huge play specifically with Ghost Spider, having a nice extra ability to move some other card off there, allow her as a 2-cost to ramp on there, the protection from the Shang-Chi. So we did cut Cosmo from that deck, but I really love that deck. It's the move deck I would highly recommend a lot of people. And I'll get the link to that video also in the description over on the Snap.fan article page for that deck, because it is, in my opinion, probably the most well-rounded move deck, because it covers so many different bases for both control as well as getting your move mechanics to properly proc off. So this deck was definitely inspired from that, and I think it's a pretty well-rounded, good place to start, because most of the cards are pretty accessible lower on, and you just make 1 or 2 little adjustments, like the dagger, for example, can be moved out later on. Vulture can be moved out later on for other move mechanics too, as just a starting place to let people know that if you're going to get Ghost Spider, you can build a deck that has Human Torch, Iron Fist, Angela, Dagger, Craven, Ghost Spider, Cloak, Doctor Strange, Vulture, Polaris, Shang-Chi, Heimdall. So it has the base mechanics that later on, when you have, let's say, Spider-Man 2099, you can make a small adjustment, maybe take out the Shang-Chi and put in Spider-Man 2099, because that's your destroy mechanic instead of Shang-Chi. Like, there's a lot of cool things that can be done with it. It's just a starting point. It's the recommended deck in the article that'll be up on Snap.fan. And I think knowing everything we now know about the season pass and the season 4 and or 5 cards that are coming, Molt, why don't you let everybody know where can we find you, and let them know, where your brain's going to probably be starting with Ghost Spider, so they know what to look forward to on a couple of your first videos and or streams.
Yeah. So my channel where I post all my Marvel Snap stuff is just Molt Marvel Snap. And then Molt_YT on Twitter is where you can find some of my decks that I'll post, and hot takes as well about Galactus and stuff like that. But I feel like the deck that you have right here on the screen that he just mentioned for the podcast listeners is a great start. And you have a couple of kind of, I don't know, interchangeable cards here with the Polaris. You can throw in Juggernaut, which is hands down one of my favorite cards in the game. Incredibly strong. For those final turn Juggernaut Doctor Strange plays, you can completely shut people down and catch them off guard with that. And like you said, Shang-Chi, that's incredible. Like the fact that we can play Spider-Man 2099 and Ghost Spider on final turn instead of playing Shang-Chi or whatever. There's lots of different opportunities. So yeah, I'm gonna be dedicating this month to a lot of different move decks because there is a lot, and I think that that's something that I'm excited for people to figure out. So for so long, it was just lumped into the Heimdall deck. You know, you You hear growing up that first impressions are everything, and people's first impressions with Move have always been Heimdall. And there is so much deeper to the Move archetype that I think people are finally going to start to unlock here. And I'm really excited to see how people use all of these different cards to either make strictly move decks or to throw into hybrid move decks like we see with Bounce, and then like my stop and move deck that has a lot of control aspects to it as well. So I'm amped to see what the community comes up with, and for all of us to kind of figure this out together, because it's going to be a fun season for sure.
Yeah, I would just add one other thing, a sleeper card to just be thinking about, right, for a lot of people is Jeff in a lot of these decks too, because with Move making a rise, be prepared to see more lockout decks, so more Professor X, Spider-Man that we saw before, which Move kind of gets around some of that when you're putting stuff in different places. But just be prepared for that, for people to try to find a quick answer. So Jeff's also another really good 2-drop. Works a little bit differently, but being able to kind of take him with a Craven-based type deck, so you can move him into Craven, or you can get around those Professor X plays. Because, again, a good answer to Move is throw Professor X right in the middle lane.
Yep.
So
it's
just
one of the most frustrating things.
I know. Just want to throw that out there, because I know if you start to have problems with Move, he is an answer, even if you have to give up that lane. Taking away a turn 6 or something like that with a Heimdall not being able to move stuff is always a play there. So be aware, which again brings you into last month's card with Jeff being able to kind of be in there and work with the move deck.
Yeah, I think that what you just mentioned is one reason why I am so excited about Ghost Spider, because so often locations, especially if they're in the middle or the right side, if you can't play your 3-cost cards, or you can't, like, it's incredibly frustrating to play Move sometimes. I think that's why a lot of people don't play it. But now with Ghost Spider, Doctor Strange, and Cloak all giving you access to locations, like even if you have Fisk Tower in the middle, or like you said, Professor X, now you can kind of work around it with like turn 5, you could play Vulture and Ghost Spider, and then Doctor Strange on the other location, and work around the issues that you might have with that Professor X. But yeah, Jeff is obviously incredibly good there to prevent that. But yeah, thinking about what your opponent might do and being able to catch them off guard is gonna be big.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a really exciting season with a lot of spiders, a lot of movement, probably a lot of Professor X simultaneously, who's going to make a huge resurgence again. I'm fine with it. I love my baby variation. But I'm very excited, because Move is an archetype that I've gotten slightly better at, but I'm excited to have this season be so dedicated towards it. Especially the first week, once Ghost Spider drops, everybody's going to be going crazy over Move. It's what happens with every season pass card. Everything is going to be Move. So whether you choose to play into it or you choose to play around it, Ghost Spider, either way, will fit into a deck. And if you're interested in Spider Ham or Spider-Man 2099 or Silk, I think they're all unique cards that feed Move, but don't necessarily need to be in Move. And they all will have their own unique home, especially because 2 of them potentially are going to end up being 3,000 collector's tokens. So, Molt, we've had you go. Britt, let them know where we can find you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to check out any of the content we're doing, you can check this out live on Mondays. So on Mondays, we do this live over on the DefaultDan Twitch, the twitch.tv/DefaultDan. We got videos going up as well on YouTube. And if you want to have some fun, Monday nights, we also do our new stuff called Marvel Scrap, where we have 3 different, whether they're content creators or just people in the community, go against each other, trying to make the best arguments, but the chat is who actually makes those decisions. So if you like kind of game showy Snap content, we do that on Mondays. And then, of course, the Snap.fan stuff. If you guys don't know, like we said, we are officially partnered and officially on the Snap.fan team. So on Wednesdays, we do our Wednesday night Snap, as well as our monthly big open tournament. So Wednesday night Snap, a little bit more casual, 4 rounds of Swiss. You get to play some decks. We've got a prize pool that we just kind of give out to people who get 4 wins and 3 wins. And then the huge opens every month, where we have 200 to 300 people actually going for that huge prize money. And I think last month was like $600, and we're hoping to get something close again this month. So always a lot of fun.
Yeah. I have a feeling that this month is going to be the biggest competition for the Snap.fan Opens yet. It's just a guttural feeling. So I hope to see everybody there. I know I'll be there for casting for it, as well as yourself on the back end for intros and outros, knowing you. But for those who do not know, my name is Guest. You can find me everywhere at this point. You can find this video, of course, on my YouTube at ItsGuestGaming. Find me at twitch.tv streaming several times a week. Same name, ItsGuestGaming. Twitter, ItsGuestGaming. I mean, just you'll see it all in the description down below. But I'm most excited to now be a part of the Snap.fan team as their lead writer, and having these articles, these special moments come directly from Snap.fan. Again, huge thank you for them for partnering with us and allowing us to continue to grow. DefaultDan, thank you so much as always for being an amazing, I love amazing everything, because I love the way the new layout looks as well. I think this looks really clean. I'm not gonna lie. This looks really clean. For the first go, especially, like, nailed it. First shot, good sir. And Molt, thank you so much again for joining us and being our very first special guest on the Snap.back podcast. So I appreciate all of your insight and deeper dives into not just the move world, but basically Marvel Snap over the next several weeks. I'm excited to see what you come up with over on Twitter and on YouTube. And for those who have just tuned in and you're watching or listening at the end of the podcast, please head over to ratemypodcast.com/snapbackpodcast and let us know how we're doing, and let us know any questions you have for the mailbag. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here today on the Snapback Podcast, where you snap and we snap back. Everybody, say goodbye.
Y'all take it easy.
Take care, guys.
See, take care, guys was a much better outro than y'all take it easy. So I think Molt, I'm gonna take your audio clip and just lay it over his, because in 15 episodes he still hasn't figured out something confident and chill. I mean, he's a chill guy.
Doesn't like the Southern when I use like y'all and all, so all y'all guys. Like, he doesn't.
I say y'all too, but
he doesn't like the all y'all.
Like, that's like too many L's. Way too much.